cattle here, okay, to try to look at various endpoints and all of that. So you do have some rather broad ranges in here, but a lot of that was created by purposeful data collection and selection. But you can see that your average finished weight or on-farm weight for cattle sent in for this particular deal was 1,187 pounds, but the average live weight at the plant was 1,023. Okay? So what happened? What happened?
Stress.
Okay. Well, it's called shrink, right? And it's also called weigh-up conditions on your farms. And it's called maybe your scales aren't right on your farms, right? Okay? So here's what you got to realize. Now, and a lot of producers have a lot of consternation over this, okay? Because they weigh them on farm, and then they get this hot carcass weight in the plant, and your average out of this group of cattle was 579, and they say, wait a minute. There is no way that my cattle dress 50%. Something's wrong. That plant's cheating me. I know they're cheating me. They're wrong on that weight. Because I weighed that animal and it weighed such and such on my farm. There's no way it yielded just 50%, right? That's what we're saying, right? But yet, what were your weigh-up conditions on the farm? Did you shrink the cattle before you weighed them? Or did they tank up before you weighed them? Okay? Or, again, were your scales correct? All right? And how long between your live weight on the farm and the weight at the plant? How long were they trucked? How were they trucked? It's all about shrink, folks, and weigh-up conditions. Yes, sir?
What's an average shrink? Say they're sent today and they butchered tomorrow.
Tell me how far they're transported to the plant before I answer that question.
150 miles.
150 miles? 6 to 10. And on how they're handled, 6 to 10%. Right? What do you experience? Okay. So the further you truck them, the greater the degree of shrink. Bottom line. Okay. And how you handle them ahead of shipping. How you gather and sort and load, and even how the driver drives. All of it influences shrink. Okay? And then how they're handled at the plant when they're offloaded before they go into the knock box. All influences degree of shrink. So that's why proper handling and transport is so very critical. Very, very critical to what you want to achieve.
Do you think it's better to go straight into the box, or just to, when you're offloading them, to let them settle? Or is it better just right in?
We target, and again, we're shipping load lots of the time, semi-loads, but we target having them at the plant at least 12 hours ahead of the knock box. Okay? And that way they're out, they're drinking water, they're eating hay in the pens and all of that. They had everyone, they're calming down. They had everyone into the knock box. Now, no problem, you know, if everything is done very calmly, going straight from the farm to the knock box, but it better be done very calmly. Yes?
So shrink is definitely impacting the live to hanging weight yield. How?
Yes.
Obviously, because of, so now you have gut loss or gut fill loss and whatever the remaining, but what impact does it have on the actual hanging weight? So like a producer, if he's trying to figure out, did I lose money on that shrink? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, shrink impacts your hanging weight. A shrink is shrink. Okay? What is shrink? Water loss, right? Water loss in the carcass. Okay, that's in the whole animal. So when you have water loss in the drop, or what you drop off on the kill floor of that carcass, right? But you also have water loss in the muscles, or what stays on that carcass. So shrink cuts across everything. And so if you have shrink in the live animal, you're going to have shrink in the carcass as well. Yes?
So if you see hockey cattle have a higher shrink than calmer cattle, because I've been commingling, and certain producers have hockey cattle and So is it, can you proof it out in the shrink loss to that?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
One bad apple spoils the barrel, okay? So, absolutely. You know, that's why it's critical that every producer pays attention to calmness in their cattle
Yeah.
and implements management practices that promote that. It's very important. You don't want flighty cattle, temperamental cattle. Yeah.
Somebody tried to tell me that salt, whether excess or deficiency, could have effect on flavor and shrink.
If you've got an excess or deficiency, it can, yes.
He was saying excess could flavor and minimize shrink.
No. So he's in favor of tightening them up on salt? No, sir, don't do that.
I don't think it's more excessive, but you want to make sure they have a little over the dietary recommendation. Never heard of it.
We don't bother with that. You know, the other factors are far more important than that. So I wouldn't, you know, purposefully try to do that.
Free
in my
choice
opinion.
salt, go away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you've kept minerals and all of that out there for them on a consistent basis like you should, you're not going to have an issue anyway. You know? So I wouldn't purposefully try to tank them up on salt just ahead of shipping. Okay, so, you know, now again, understand that the ranges here are greater than they should be simply because of purposeful selection, okay, for the purpose of this research. But just like in the data I showed you earlier, you know, what you don't want, and you're not normally going to have this degree of ranges between your minimums and maximums, okay? But if this were what you're receiving in on a normal basis, this would be cause for concern and would give, if I were marketing this for you, this would give me an awful lot of heartburn because you've just made my job infinitely harder, okay? So uniformity and consistency is really, really important in what you do, and we just want to make sure, you know, that starts with your genetic selection, that starts, you know, on your farms, on your ranches. So we want to make darn sure, you know, that we're doing that. Yes?
Do you have any suggestions to kind of seeing our data, meeting some of our producers over the last 2 days, some suggestions, not necessarily to the grazers or to a particular producer, but just in general about this region, of how to start creating more consistency and get in the game at a little higher level?
Well, first of all, I would take a look among your members and see, you know, what is the genetic variation that you currently have? You know, what breed types are present among your membership? You know, what is the difference in terms of their frame score, their phenotype, their mature body weights for the cows, and that kind of thing of the herd? Because, you know what? If you look at mature body weight for a cow, that's about where her steer progeny is going to finish out at the property where you finish. Okay? So you need to sort of survey and inventory where you are at. Breed type, phenotype, frame score, average mature cow body weight, all of those types of things. And then, if you're actually going to do something, you have to make hard decisions as a membership. And you have to say, okay, do I have my favorite breed type and all of this, and I'm sticking with because I like them, then those decisions are, okay, either you go with what we decide in the co-op to be more uniform, or you're on your own. Okay, that's what it boils down to. So you have to make some tough decisions within your membership so that you can market accordingly. And again, though, every one of your genetic selection decisions should be based on the parameters I presented this morning, and not on Fresh Direct, not on Joyce Farms, not on Strauss, not on JBS, or anybody else. Okay? Do not make your genetic selection decisions and on-farm management decisions based on us. That would be the wrong move for you to make. So make them based on profitability, on the farm and ranch, on functional, efficient cattle. Okay? And you can do that and still have the desirable end product that you want. So that's the first thing that I would do, is look at the degree of genetic uniformity currently existing. The second thing I would do is seriously consider implementing, developing an ultrasound, a competent ultrasound technician, investing in a machine, and start ultrasounding your cattle. Okay? So that you know where you're at in that regard, and you know how to match up your cattle to your market. The third thing that I would do is start looking for more than one market out. Okay? You need Fresh Direct, they need you, and that's great. But again, don't put all your eggs in one basket. So start developing an additional market outlet that will serve you well and allow you to be able to diversify your market opportunities, and also for your membership provide market opportunities for both the lean and the better finished cattle. Now they have somewhere to go with all their cattle, rather than just those that are here, or rather than just making the decision that, you know, as you said earlier, okay, I'm just taking them all to 900 pounds and we're just going to slaughter them all at 900 no matter what, because they'll be green at that point, right? That's not the wisest decision, okay? They're going to naturally sort themselves, and using ultrasound technology, you can do that and determine that, and then you can market them appropriately. So those are the primary steps that I would take. And then also determine your production protocol standards that you want to meet and match, and then target branded programs for. Yes.
I'm going to lead you into this a little, I'm sorry, only because I've had the privilege of having phone calls with you prior to this, but I would add one other element to that, especially as I've seen a lot of heads with the ultrasound, and trust me, there's heads back here with the ultrasound. We have to think about scale and efficiency and how that might happen, and just a quick little snippet about finishing as consistently at a larger scale means that maybe if you're only finishing 20 animals per year, there's not going to be an ultrasound machine on your farm, and there's no way for the co-op to get that done. So just a little bit of strategy on finishing maybe.
Yes. Here's what we've done, and here's why. Most of our cow-calf producers that supply us do not do their own finishing. Okay? For a multitude of reasons. First of all, if you're going to be a cow-calf producer and also finish, then that means that you are going to have to reduce the number of cows, breeding age females, that you're maintaining on your farm, because you've got to have acres to finish on as well. And you're going to be carrying a lot more classes of cattle on your farm year-round, right? Okay? So you're giving up cow-calf units to be able to finish. Secondly, if you're going to supply a customer year-round, or a group of customers year-round with fresh beef, finished beef supply, and you as individuals are saying, well, my optimum time to finish is April to September or October, and I don't really want to have to be carrying cattle through the winter, then you're not doing what's right for your customers and building a customer base. Because you have to have loads coming out every week of the year that are finished, okay? So that may not be the optimum thing for you as an individual. It may not be the most profitable thing for you as an individual. So, and also, as an individual finisher, frankly, you may not have the skill and expertise necessary to do a great job of finishing. And you're just not getting it done, okay? And we've seen a lot of those. You're great as a cow-calf producer, you're not very good as a finisher, okay? And that is the honest truth. We all have our strengths and weaknesses, nothing wrong about that, okay? So we encountered in our early years all of those problems to a high degree. And that created heartburn and terrible inconsistency. And then that meant upset customers were calling me, okay? So what we have done is we have established professional forage finishers, all right? Just like a feedlot, except it's not a feedlot. It's a farm, just like your farms with grass, where their principal role is, instead of cow-calf production, is to take and aggregate your calves after weaning and then finish them, okay? That is the best move we've ever made, because then those guys are concentrating on finishing year-round. That's their job, and they're able to return high net profits per acre because they're finishing year-round. And you also get year-round cash flow, because you are shipping out calves every week of the year, okay? So your cash flow is constant. Yes, sir?
My question is, because I talked with Dan about this, about being a feeder producer, that's what we're trying to get this value chain going in the co-op, is calves born in the spring are growing a lot faster than ones born, because you got to have all year-round crops. So I set my place up before to have calves all year long. And of course, the ones that are born in September, October aren't growing like the ones born in April or May. So do you have any mechanism where there's a different pay scale, or to keep them, or everybody's paying? Because it's taking longer to get them up to 500 pounds than the ones in the spring. And what do you do? Is there something you do to do that, or is it up to the guy that's doing it to bump them up and feed them more? Or because it's the cost-effective one is in the spring, not the ones born in November or October.
Yeah, well, there's two ways to approach that, okay, or more than two. There's 3 or 4 ways to approach that. First of all, by having professional finishers that are receiving calves in throughout the year, we just simply don't have an issue with that, okay? Because some calves take a little longer, some finish a lot quicker. They sort of sort themselves out, all right, when they go to the finisher. And the finisher has the ability, because these are calves from all of you on a single operation, now they can do a great job of sorting up every time they need to sort out a load and providing a very uniform, consistent load going out. And that load may have 2 of your calves, 4 of your calves, 5 of your calves, whatever on that load. So it's an aggregated load, but it's very uniform, okay? And so it doesn't matter that some of your calves are slower and some of them are faster in their finishing, because they're all now with the finisher, and they're going to sort up.
Well, I'm just
to
saying,
get that job done.
As a feeder producer, calf producer, the ones born in the fall, I'm going to be getting less for because they're not going to be as big, is what I'm trying to get at. I mean, you don't have a mechanism, so I just, to supply them?
Well,
in 5 months, a spring calf is going to weigh 400 or 500 pounds, but a fall calf is going to weigh 350.
Yeah.
Something like that. That's what I'm trying to get at,
Yep, I understand. And so your choice, your decision then becomes, you have the option. You don't have to send them to the finisher at 350. If you've got extra grass, instead of carrying them all the way to finish, you can carry them to 6 weight, 7 weight, and then send them to the finisher. Okay? So we have a lot of producers that are doing that. Okay? The other deal is, I've worked a lot with Country Natural Beef, if y'all have heard of that grading program. And they slaughter more than 100,000 head a year in that grading program. And so they have 250 plus ranchers supplying them. What they do is that they slot annually. They have an annual business meeting, and every rancher gets an opportunity to slot loads and to keep going around and around the room so that it's fair, so the big producers can't dominate and outslot the small producers. They keep going around and around the room. Everybody gets one slot. However many number of head that slot is, for them it's 40 head. Okay? And until the small producers have slotted all that they have, and then the large ones can then continue to slot until they fill the total need. And they pay a premium based on seasonal needs. So for ranchers that are willing to supply feeder cattle in the off-peak times, okay, get a premium for those calves, like you're talking about, over the ones that are in the peak times. Okay, so absolutely, you can set up something like that modeled off of country natural beast model, which has worked very well for now 30 years. So it's a highly proven model. And their whole model works extremely well. For any co-op type program, I would recommend taking a very strong look at their structure and how they conduct business, because it's worked so very well. But there's opportunity for you to develop. Any one of you in here may decide you want to become a, quote, professional finisher. And then the rest of you can aggregate calves with that finisher, and you can either sell your calves to that finisher, and then they contract for the finished animal with the buyer, or they can custom finish, and you can retain ownership, okay? And so you pay them to custom finish on gain, but then you contract with Fresh Direct or whoever's going to buy. All right, so there's multiple ways to do that. And we have people that are doing it all of those ways. Yes?
I hear everything you're saying. The animals that are, I often find that the animals and calves that are born on my farm always, do better than, even good, feeders that I buy in and finish at, the same age. Just, I think, it goes with maybe the handling, but they'll finish earlier and, with a higher degree of finish than the animals that I buy in, and quality animals. So, if I can finish them earlier, finish them better, there's no profit there, net profit there.
Maybe, maybe not. Maybe, maybe not. Because here again, now, when you send them to, again, a very skilled finisher, we don't have any problem with those animals adapting and gaining and all of that. Okay? They do very well. But here's the deal. You got to balance holding these animals all the way to finish weight versus adding more cow-calf pairs. What is the most profitable outlet for you? Okay, that's what's going to be important to you. So you got to run the pencil on there, and that the spreadsheet right here will help you do that. Okay, so you got to make those decisions, and but that's just an option. Now, if you're direct marketing, okay, then you may need to continue to finish on your own farm. All right, so if you're direct marketing, that's the way it is. But again, that's one thing. It doesn't mean that all of your calves have to go to a finisher. You can still direct finish some on your farm and direct market. Okay, but if they're being slotted, say, for Fresh Direct or whatever, or other branded programs, then it's probably going to be to your advantage to send them and aggregate them and send them to a finisher. And again, that can be one of your members as well. Develop, test, to finisher. So just, consider your options and run the pencil on it, because a lot of these things work out a lot better when you go that route, and it's more profitable for everybody, and you end up getting the uniformity and consistency that you need in that
When do you recommend, or your group, or taking the feeders to the finisher? Is there a certain poundage, or you take them anywhere between 5 and 7, or what do you recommend? What do you want them as a professional finisher? Is there a certain?
We get in feeders everywhere from 5 weight to 8 weight plus, and then we sort into weight class groups to graze, because the 8 weight plus is going to require a little bit different type of nutrition than the 5 weight.
I noticed, like in the Lancaster paper, I read about in all the auctions up through Virginia, that they pay different. Like for the smaller ones seem to be higher than the older ones or the bigger ones, and so we'll have to work something out like that within our co-op, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about
Yes,
the weather issue up northeast? What do you suggest about that? We're not finishing, most people are not going to be finishing on real grass in January, February,
Right.
March. in most winters.
Yep, you're gonna be, and we have professional finishers in Minnesota, Wisconsin, different places, so the same deal. And so what you're looking at there is you're looking at a combination of winter stockpile, coupled with, you know, haylage, baleage, dry hay, things like that. You know, and some, like we have a lot of them that are feeding non-GMO soy hull pellets as well, on a limited basis. We don't want to get over 0.5% body weight on that. You know, so yeah, we use supplemental.
Feedlot element to those
Right,
finishing up.
right, in the winter time.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What protein level on your haylage for finishing the winter?
Well, here's what I want to target. I want overall protein no more than 14%. Total dietary protein with everything combined that they're eating, no more than 14%. Because a high protein diet is not a finishing diet. If you look at feedlot rations, you know, there's not a single feedlot ration that's high protein, finishing ration, you know, not a one. And that's for a very, very good reason that I talked about earlier. So I target no more than 14%. And so I look at my combined feedstuffs that they're getting, you know, to determine that. On my haylage, baleage, all of that, what's much more important to me is not high protein, but high energy. I want to get my energy from those feedstuffs. Yes, sir.
Have you done anything with grass finishing on the soybean steam as a daily shot?
Yeah, but we don't use just straight sorghum stem. We'll have it in a cocktail, like a BMR and all of that, and yes, works very well. Yeah, they'll crank on that.
So you'll wrap your cocktails too?
Do I?
You baleage your cocktail as well?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We don't plant monocultures for anything. So everything that we put up is a cocktail of some kind. Yeah. So, yes, sir.
Will those small grains fit as a grass type program as long as they're harvested before?
That's correct. Yes, even corn, as long as you harvest it, you know, ahead of the dough stage and all that, absolutely can be in silo and used as well. And that fits under all the protocols. That's an immature silage, so that works. Just one more thing, just, you know, the Soil Carbon Cowboy series by Peter Dick is a good series of short films for y'all to watch. You can Google all of those, and we've got a whole series of new Soil Carbon Cowboy films coming out that will be released this year. And then I have a book available called Before You Have a Cow that covers a lot of the things that we talked about today as well. So that's a resource that's available if you would like that. I'll leave you with this, and you know, then you're free to continue asking questions as long as you want to hang around. But you know, everything we do in life has to do with being incentivized, right? We have to have incentive to do anything. And it's like this buddy of mine down in Mississippi who just loves to fish, right? And so one day he was out on the lake fishing, and I mean, fish were biting very, very well. So well that he ran out of bait. But he didn't want to go home. So we started looking around for what he could use for bait. He saw this old cottonmouth moccasin up on the bank of that lake with a frog in his mouth. So he thought, you know what, I can use that frog. So he used the bow of that boat up over that snake, reached down, grabbed that snake behind his head, pulled him into the boat, yanked the frog out of his mouth, dropped the frog in his bait bucket, and then he realized he was looking at a very angry snake. And he didn't know how in the world he was going to let that snake go without him biting. But then he realized he always carries that bottle of Jack Daniels with him. Okay? So he reached down, he grabbed that bottle of Jack Daniels, and he poured some down that snake's gullet. And it wasn't long before that old snake's eyes started rolling back in his head, and his whole body went limp, and he just tossed him out in the water. Okay? So he grabbed the frog, baited his hook, commenced to fishing again, and it wasn't long before he felt the nudge at his foot, and there was that snake with 2 more frogs in his mouth. Y'all, I've enjoyed the day. I know it's been a very long day. I appreciate your patience. Again, I know you'll probably ruminate on a lot of these things, have a lot more questions. Feel free to email or call me. I'll do my very best to help you in any way I can. So thank y'all very much.